in his continued cover-up of these files. I think it's important for people to understand that we have already subpoenaed these files. He is already under a legal obligation to produce these files to Congress and has not complied with the subpoena. And he has spent months trying to cover up this case. He has spent months trying to bully and pressure his members of the Republican Party to try to bury this case, to try to do everything in his power to keep these files from seeing the light of day. And now he's not saying he's going to release the files, which he is already obligated to do. He is merely saying to Republicans, okay, you can vote for this discharge petition. But we want to be clear. We have already subpoenaed the files. He is already legally required to release the files, and he is not complying with the law.
How many Republicans do you think will join Democrats on this discharge petition vote now that the president has given them a go-ahead?
I mean, it's hard to say. I think the fact that, the speaker is expediting the vote and the president released a statement last night essentially saying go ahead and vote for it could mean the entire caucus. And if they do, that means that they get the political cover that the president wants. And the president even says in his statement he wants to move on. So let me say this to you, Donald Trump. We are not moving on. This investigation will continue. We will continue to seek justice for the victims. We will continue to subpoena and ask for these files, and we will continue to investigate the criminal wrongdoing that was never prosecuted by the Department of Justice.
I want to play part of a powerful PSA that just came out from Epstein survivors calling on the government to release these files. Let's watch.
I was 14 years old.
I was 16 years old.
I was 16.
17.
14 years old. This is me.
This was me.
This is me.
When I met Jeffrey Epstein.
This is me when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
There are about 1,000 of us.
It's time to bring the secrets out of the shadows. It's time to shine a light into the darkness.
These survivors keep telling us that there is so much more to be uncovered just based on their own personal experiences. Can you give us a sense of maybe the universe of files that you think remain unseen?
Yeah. Well, first of all, to anyone out there who is a survivor of sexual violence, we're here to fight for justice. And we know that there was a vast miscarriage of justice in this case. When I see those videos and those photographs of what are now women, but were little girls when they were abused, groomed, sexually exploited, my heart breaks. People need to understand these were little girls, thousands potentially of little girls that were brought to Epstein's estate and exploited by grown men. So we're going to continue to pursue based on previous civil suits as well as Department of Justice statements, that there are dozens of sworn statements by survivors, including the sworn statements taken by the FBI of over 40 minors in case. We know that Epstein was reinvestigated again before he was arrested in 2019. We know there's vast investigations that happened to Ghislaine Maxwell that resulted in her prosecution. We're talking FBI files, DOJ files, recommendations to prosecute, sworn statements not just from victims but potential co-conspirators and witnesses, as well as thousands and thousands of documents, videos, and other evidence that was seized from Epstein and from his properties. So while Donald Trump can call for the release of selective files and try to pin some sort of crime on, folks that are his political opponents, we are calling for the release of the full files, whoever is in the files, because these victims demand and deserve justice. They were raped, they were abused, and the men who perpetrated these crimes were never held accountable.
Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury, thank you very much for your time, and let's stay close as far as the proceedings in the next couple of days. We appreciate your time today. Up next, North Carolina, the latest state targeted by the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. A U.S. citizen recording this video with an agent actually smashing his window. We'll speak to the mayor pro tem of Charlotte. Plus, we have new exclusive reporting on FBI Director Kash Patel's country music performer girlfriend and her FBI security detail. and with more bad weather on the way. We're back in 90 seconds.
Decided to take up this case, and basically it'll weigh whether or not asylum seekers can claim asylum on the Mexican side of the U.S. border. Now, this case is specifically talking about Mexico, but theoretically it could be any side of any border, whether it's Canada or Mexico. And that's because historically...
Quickly, Donald Trump is threatening this escalated quickly. Donald Trump is threatening Marjorie Taylor Greene's life. This, according to Marjorie Taylor Greene and her family. Donald Trump has been relentlessly attacking Marjorie Taylor Greene, encouraging others in his cult to go after her, to mock her, to attack her. He's now referring to her as wacky Marjorie Traitor Brown, saying, remember, green turns to brown when there is rot involved. Donald Trump was asked as he was leaving Florida, where he was hiding after the release of the Epstein emails, and he was there on the taxpayer dime, about Marjorie Taylor Greene feeling like her life is being threatened by his barrage of harassment and the calling her of a traitor and encouraging others in his cult to go after her. Donald Trump says, I don't think her life is in danger. He says nobody cares about her at all, so her life can't be in danger. When I listen to this, this sounds like a mafia-style threat against Marjorie Taylor Greene. Tell me what you think when you hear this. Let's play this clip.
Her life could be in danger because of the rhetoric.
Her life is in danger? Who's that?
Marjorie Taylor Greene, she says.
Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't think her life is in danger. Frankly, I don't think anybody cares about her. Okay, what about you?
Now, Donald Trump continued to attack Marjorie Taylor Greene all day, into the night, into the morning, calling her a lightweight congresswoman. Again, he continues that she's rotten, that green grass turns to brown. He's encouraged others to run against her and primary her. He says she's out of MAGA and that she's a disgrace. Marjorie Taylor Greene has responded, and she says, now I'm getting these like pizza hoaxes and people doxing my home. She claims we received a pipe bomb threat on one of her construction company's office buildings. Her family owns construction buildings. She says Trump's unwarranted and vicious attacks against me were a dog whistle to dangerous radicals that could lead to serious attacks on me and my family. She says what Trump is saying, calling me a traitor, is untrue and horrific. She says this puts blood in the water and creates a feeding frenzy, and it could ultimately lead to a harmful or even deadly outcome. She's saying Donald Trump is threatening her life. Will she be taking out a restraint?
I just want to say real quick, forgive my poor audio here, but here, let me fix this real quick. When it was Nancy Pelosi, where was Marjorie Taylor Greene? When Nancy Pelosi's getting threatened, where was Marjorie Taylor Greene then? When Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked, where is Marjorie Taylor Greene protecting the people in Wisconsin? Okay, so now it's happening to her. She could see what's happening. This has been happening all along, man, to Democrats. It's not good, man. But I'm not going to sit here and award her an award either. This has been going on for years, and she supported this guy and helped get him elected. And he's done this to several other people. Adam Schiff, Swalwell, Dr. Fauci. I just want to say, man.
Against Donald Trump for these threats and harassment. She goes on to say, The timing of this happens to be days before we take the vote on releasing the Epstein files. She says, I love America and the American people. I'm not a traitor. When the president of the United States irresponsibly calls a member of Congress of his own party a traitor, he is signaling what must be done to a traitor. Now, you can see people in Trump's cult making posts like this. The twins from Shining all grown up. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene next to Lynn Cheney's faces superimposed. You have these Trump supporters calling Marjorie Taylor Greene Judas. You have, just horrific, repeatedly people harassing her, calling her R word this, R word that. Donald Trump's whoever, cult member Laura Loomer is now posting the following exclusive. She says, I spoke with law enforcement officials at the police department in Rome, Georgia. They told me they never received a report today of a bomb threat at any of the businesses of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Greene posted earlier today that because of Trump, she was getting bomb threats at her construction company's office. It appears that Marjorie Taylor Greene lied. The police in Rome, Georgia just told me they aren't aware of any bomb threat. The person I spoke with told me they would have been made aware of it. I recorded the phone call and I have video of my conversation with the Rome, Georgia Police Department. I just don't want to post the video because I know that Marjorie Taylor Greene, or she calls her Marjorie Trader Greene, is so vindictive. She will try to get the law enforcement officer fired for telling me the truth. You need to stop lying. Police in your own district just told me there was never a bomb threat. You made it up. Now, you all know that Laura Loomer and Donald Trump couldn't be closer. A lot of Donald Trump's firing of top generals at the Pentagon, firing of top generals in the military, top Pentagon staff, State Department staff, and others come from Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer also attacks Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend, Brian Glenn, and says, oh no, Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend who cheated on his wife to be with an ape is calling me a bitch. How will I ever recover? She goes on to then attack Thomas Massie and suggests that there was somehow foul play in the death of Thomas Massie's wife, which then Donald Trump echoed in his attacks against Massie. Laura Loomer says, serious questions and serious answers only. How did Thomas Massie, he's the Republican who led the discharge petition with Democratic Congressmember Ro Khanna. She goes, how did Thomas Massie's wife die? Is there a police report? Is there an autopsy? Why is this such a mystery? I'd like to know. I find it so bizarre, and I always have. Now there's a much younger woman in the picture. Then Donald Trump echoed that, and he said, did Thomas Massie, sometimes referred to as Rand Paul Jr., because of the fact he always votes against the Republican Party, get married already? Boy, that was quick. No wonder the polls have him less than 8% chance of winning the election. Anyway, have a great life, Thomas, and question mark. His wife will soon find out that she's stuck with the loser. So Donald Trump, who's on his third marriage, Donald Trump, who's on audio saying that he grabs women by their genitals and sexually assaults them because he's rich and he can get away with it. Donald Trump, who talked about going into beauty pageants and looking at girls naked so that he can inspect them as the head of the beauty pageants. Donald Trump, who's been found liable for sexual assault. Donald Trump, who was found liable on 34 felony counts. Donald Trump, who's covering up a child sex trafficking ring, is attacking Thomas Massie for his first wife passing away after their 35 years of marriage together, which destroyed Massie's life, and now he's upset that Massie remarried. That's what Donald Trump is doing right now. How utterly despicable is that? Marjorie Taylor Greene previously went after Laura Loomer and said, how does Laura Loomer get to even be a Pentagon advisor where, based on Laura Loomer's past mental conditions, potentially, she's not even allowed to legally buy a gun, according to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Here, play this clip.
How does Laura Loomer get to be a Pentagon advisor, but you get primaried? Like, what is that?
I don't know. I've never understood why anyone takes her serious. I mean, this is a woman that can't even legally buy a gun because she had such serious mental problems. She literally posted the other day that she blew blood vessels in her eye as she was hysterically tweeting, like 40 or 50 times in one day. Who listens to a person like that? Like,
Right.
no one should.
You know how every razor promises a smooth shave, but somehow it still ends up dulling fast and irritating your neck? That was me, constantly replacing blades that felt cheap. Then I tried Harry's Plus, and honestly, I've been...
And
with AI,
you can create any character you want in seconds.
This used to require huge Hollywood budgets.
I am committed, and I've been working on this a lot lately, to put down the knives in politics. I really just want to see people be kind to one another, and we need to figure out a new path forward that is focused on the American people, because as Americans, no matter what side of the aisle we're on, we have far more in common than we have differences. Yeah. And we need to be able to respect each other with our disagreements.
Marjorie Taylor Greene also went after Donald Trump in the morning for on a policy position for Donald Trump, saying that Chinese students are smarter than American students and foreign workers are better than American workers. Here's what Marjorie Taylor Greene said. Play this clip.
So sounds like you're saying that he is not representing the MAGA movement that he started right now.
I can say that promoting H-1B visas to replace American jobs, bringing in 600,000 Chinese students to replace American students' opportunities in American colleges and universities, those are not America First positions. And continuing to really travel all over the world doesn't help Americans back at home. I really, and I said this to him, and I will say it out loud, I would love to see Air Force One be parked and stay home, and there be nothing but a constant focus in the White House on a domestic agenda that helps the American people once and for all.
And Marjorie Taylor Greene was very critical of Donald Trump yesterday morning for him inviting the former leader of Al-Qaeda, who now leads Syria, into the White House, where Donald Trump sprayed him with perfume or cologne and sniffed him and said that you smell really good and you're handsome. And Marjorie Taylor Greene says that that was not a good thing to do on the Marines' 25th anniversary, sniffing the former head of Al-Qaeda in the Oval Office. I think she's right. I agree with her. Here, we'll play this clip right here.
And I can disagree with the president at times, particularly this past Monday on the Marines' 250th anniversary, when he honored the new Syrian president, who is an Al-Qaeda terrorist and was wanted by our government for years with a $10 million bounty up until March of this year. I very much am against that. I think that was very hurtful to the great men and women who served over in the Middle East and were sent there, and many of them that were killed and injured and live with PTSD to this day from fighting Al-Qaeda. So there's things I disagree with, and I'm allowed to do so.
Should also be noted, Marjorie Taylor Greene, when she was on the Sean Spicer show, Donald Trump's former press secretary, a little bit earlier last week, she said that this gaslighting people and saying prices are down is really offensive. Here, play this clip.
And so gaslighting the people and trying to tell them that prices have come down is not helping. It's actually infuriating people, because people know what they're paying at the grocery store. They know what they're paying for their kids' clothes and school supplies. They know what they're paying for their electricity bills. And so that approach does not work. We need compassion and show that we care about the American people, and show that we are in the trenches with them on what they're going through. That's first and foremost. You don't gaslight them, you don't lecture them, and you don't deny what's happening.
When she was on another podcast, she talked about, the release of the Epstein files. Here, play this clip.
Everyone that voted for Trump Vance, everyone was like, release the Epstein files.
Right.
This is not even an argument. It's not even debatable. It's not being a traitor to the president to sign my name on a Thomas Massey discharge petition to release the Epstein files. No. I am staying true to what we've always said. There needs to be transparency.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
And what's notable as well is that late last night, Donald Trump then finally posted that he now says, I want the House of Representatives to release the Epstein files. But if you actually look at what Donald Trump's post is and you take a closer look, what Donald Trump is actually saying is that he's not going to release him. But Donald Trump said, as I said on Friday night aboard Air Force One to the fake news media, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files because we have nothing to hide. You literally said the opposite. Like, you've always been saying don't release the Epstein files. But here is where Donald Trump is essentially ordering the DOJ, don't turn the files over. But he didn't want to be embarrassed by Marjorie Taylor Greene leading the House with Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie to pass a resolution to release the Epstein files, which is going to happen on Tuesday. Trump goes, the Department of Justice, in his post, the Department of Justice has already turned over tens of thousands of pages to the public on Epstein, are looking at various Democrat operatives, Bill Clinton, Reid Hoffman, Larry Summers, and their relationship to Epstein. And the House Oversight Committee can have whatever they are legally entitled to. Legally entitled to. Then he goes on to say at the end, let's start talking about the Republican Party's record-setting achievements and not fall into the Epstein, quote, trap, which is actually a curse on the Democrats, not us. Make America great again, exclamation point. You see again where he says whatever they are legally entitled to. The plan here is that now that the DOJ is investigating Democrats and not Donald Trump and not Donald Trump's friends and those who are Donald Trump in utter panic and turmoil. His meltdown late last night was a sight to behold. He was pretending that he is now in support of the House voting to release the Epstein files. He posted a long rambling message where he said, of course I always wanted the House to release the Epstein files. That was always... This escalated quickly. Donald Trump is threatening Marjorie Taylor Greene's life. This escalated quickly. Donald Trump is threatening Marjorie Taylor Greene's life. Donald Trump in utter panic and turmoil.
Welcome everybody. We do of course have lots of more Epstein information to get into, and I'm just kerflummoxed. I've never just looked up the word and I just make it up every time differently, but by the MAGA reaction to the latest trove of Epstein emails. But to start with something a little bit different, we're gonna do this, okay? Do you remember this guy, Logan Paul? He's an influencer, kind of YouTube original, I would say. One of the first really prominent YouTubers that I was aware of. And you can put this back up, Jay, during the campaign season, the B-roll you were seeing there was of him buddy with Trump. And there was this crew of bro influencers who had never really been that involved in politics, but were wooed by Trump, and without doing a ton of research, just threw their MAGA hat in the ring for Trump and did interviews with him. So I'll give you the background on Logan Paul, then we're going to talk about him questioning the moon landing and Neil deGrasse Tyson having to shut that down. But interviews that were very friendly like this.
For you guys.
Oh, no way. We got gifts.
Oh, no. They sell for a lot of money, this thing.
Oh, no way. Thank you, President.
They don't go for a lot of money. They're made in China. They're pretty cheap.
China!
Oh, man.
This is
Is this your mugshot?
yeah, can you believe
No way. You're a gangster.
This is what we're reduced to. You know,
No way. No way.
Should we put them on now? Yeah.
You know,
Isn't that crazy? Though?
That's amazing.
And it sells. Well, Elvis had one. Frank Sinatra had one.
This shirt.
But we've eclipsed them.
I remember when we originally covered this, I was very disturbed by the, no way, you're a gangster. I almost went into a Robert F. Kennedy Jr. there.
Do you have a car? And do you have a clean driving record? Did you know you could pay as low as...
I know that he keeps on claiming that the rare earth minerals... Thanks, Onyx, for 5 gifted memberships. Trump keeps on claiming that he's got a rare earth mineral deal with China, but the thing is he's claimed that he's got a deal coming within 2 weeks since April, and then in June, and then in July, and then August, September, October, and now the newest one is Todd Blanche claiming that there's going to be a
Welcome everybody. We do of course have lots of Epstein subscribed viewers versus people who regularly watch.
Slightest muscle movements, you'll just float.
Don't you think that video looks a little silly though?
But how much you weigh here? You 220? 215? 215? Yeah. So on the moon, you would weigh 35 pounds. So you have your musculoskeletal strength to accommodate Earth weight. Yep. Even if I put on 100 pounds of suit, okay, on the moon, that's adding 16 pounds to your body. So now there you are. Now those suits are not, like modern flexi suits. Yep. That's like first gen moon suits. But with your current musculoskeletal structure, you're now skipping around with 40 pounds of total weight. So your slightest muscle movements, you'll just float.
Don't you think that video looks a little silly though? Like
that doesn't mean it's not true.
But is that really how you would?
He's on the moon. The moon. If by silly you mean not how we jump around here on Earth, yes, exactly. How do you imagine it? The funny thing is, like, how would you know what looks silly? How would I know? That video is pretty wacky. Podcast listeners, it was of the astronaut jumping and gliding through the air a little bit. And it's so funny to be so confident about things. Like, something's off about that video when you couldn't possibly comprehend. It's the moon. We haven't been there. Well, we have. We haven't. You and I haven't. So how would we know what looks normal? They're in these big suits.
Bounce around on the moon?
Yes, on those kind of outfits. I mean, they're not doing jumping jacks. They can't because they don't have that flexibility. But if you don't have much flexibility, that's when you go up slowly and down.
So you think we went to the moon?
I know we went to the moon. What do you mean I think? They brought back rocks, okay? Rocks shared with laboratories around the world. That's what you do as scientists.
And that's evidence for you. That's the concrete evidence you need to believe in something.
Plus the Saturn V rocket launched. You can calculate how much fuel is in it and what that could do to the little capsule where the 3 astronauts were. It's enough fuel to go into Earth orbit, go to the moon, go into moon orbit, come back to Earth, and land. Where do you think those rockets were going? To the Piggly Wiggly down the street? What, like, it's
a good point.
Thousands of people who would have to keep this a secret. So just ask yourself. No, here, I'll answer it the cleanest way I can. You ready?
All right, so listen up. State Farm was trying to charge me $197 for car insurance. No, thank you.
NASA was concerned that Russia would beat us to the moon.
Yep.
So they and the government got together, say, we're going to have to fake this. So they say, but we don't know how to do that. Let's go to Hollywood. So they called Hollywood, and Hollywood said, we got to fake the moon landing, but don't tell anyone. Okay. So Hollywood studies the problem and comes back and says, turns out we can fake the moon landing, but it's way easier if we do it on location.
That was good from Neil. That was good. And yeah, I have a similar thought here, and I'll show you Kim Kardashian, as I do when we talk about the UFOs, UAPs, and there are certain people.
So Donald Trump is absolutely panicking today as the walls are closing in. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Check this out. Breaking. In a sharp reversal, Trump said House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files. Wow. Why the sudden change of heart? Because they've been slow walking this thing. They've been blocking stuff. They've been covering up. I think they know that the vote's going to go bad. That's my first reaction to this. Bad for them, that is. Because you essentially can get a head count ahead of time, get a general idea, okay, who's going to vote yes, who's going to vote no, who are the kind of maybes, and you get a sense of where the wind is blowing. And now Trump's going to be like, hey, I was for releasing this stuff all along. The question, though, is going to be, will they release everything? And will they release everything unredacted, right? So they could put a whole bunch of black, markings everywhere and cover up everything. That's certainly a possibility. But at the moment, this is what he's tweeting out. He says, as of Friday night aboard Air Force One, to the fake news media, House Republicans should vote. Illustrates who these people are, okay? Talking about the Republicans and GOP. And effectively what it is, it's a big cult and just a bunch of high school cliquey stuff. Seriously, this is what's running the USA right now. Listen to what she has to say. She says, "You know what I hate about the right?" It's from Laura Loomer. "This BS narrative that we can't have standards because we have to be considerate of who is friends with each other." That's really what we're talking about, right? You got to understand who's friends with each other. And, you know, this is all while we're talking about whether or not we're going to release the Epstein files, so really what we're talking about, right? You got whether or not we're going to people who are protecting said names, essentially what it is. And then effectively then it becomes, okay, it all depends on who's friends with who. It's the same with the Republican parties, that there's a lot of infighting right now, and they're all trying to figure out where to position themselves. And it's all up to, you know, do you believe...
Hello traders, in this video we're going to introduce the Smart AI Indicator, which we developed in partnership with OpenAI.
So the legally part, you can play that any number of ways.
With the information that we have now, it is not enough to just ask the question, is Donald Trump in the Epstein files, or did he commit crimes alongside Jeffrey Epstein? We know that for sure by now. The questions that we have to ask from Rachel Maddow that gives us the context that we need.
What happened to the lawyer who got Epstein his bizarrely lenient plea deal when he was first arrested on sex trafficking charges in Florida? What happened to the lawyer who got him that bizarrely lenient plea deal? Well, Trump hired him to be his own lawyer. What happened to the U.S. attorney who gave Jeffrey Epstein that bizarrely lenient plea deal? Trump put him in his cabinet in his first term. Well, who then prosecuted Epstein a second time when he was brought up on federal charges? That was the SDNY line prosecutor who Trump inexplicably fired last week. Who was in charge of the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Prisons when Epstein then killed himself in federal custody? President Donald Trump. Who bragged to a reporter about how much Epstein seemed to like women on the younger side? Who said Epstein was a lot of fun to be with? Who bragged that he was friends with Epstein for 15 years? Who flew on his plane at least 7 times? And who now says that everybody needs to stop talking about Jeffrey Epstein right now? Answers there are Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, and Donald Trump.
We know when Donald Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein started, but it never really ended. Even if you say that Trump and Epstein stopped spending time together maybe in the early 2000s, which just isn't the case considering Epstein said that he saw Trump at Thanksgiving in 2017, but their friends, their colleagues, people that they worked with in business were constantly overlapping. The relationship between Trump and Epstein continues to this day. What do you think Todd Blanche visiting Ghislaine Maxwell is? That is a continuation of their relationship.
The one thing with Maria Bartiromo, where they sat down, and I mean, they were glum, and they're saying there's nothing there. I would be honest with you, there's nothing there. After years and years of pushing, and also calling this somehow a Democrat, according to them.
Here's some tea for you. MTG, people are like, oh my God, she's saying all of these things. Like, what's gotten into her lately? Like she's bucking against Trump. She's bucking against the administration.
We heard from one of your members today, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who wrote this morning that on y'all's GOP conference call, she said Speaker Johnson said he has ideas and pages of policy, but did not say a single policy plan. She said, I find it unacceptable that Republicans are sitting on the sidelines doing nothing to fix this healthcare disaster that is leading many Americans into financial ruin.
The issues of the subsidies are real. It's not something that anybody can say is made up. Also, people with regular or private plans, their premiums are looking to go up a median of 18%. That's brutal. I know a lot of small business owners, like a family of 4, and they're paying $2,000 a month. $2,000 a month with deductibles of $7,000 to $10,000, and approximately 40% of these people don't even use their health insurance. So So they're just burning money just in case they might have cancer, or just in case they have a terrible car accident. If you double their health insurance or even triple it, these people are they're either going to have to drop it, or they're going to be choosing between rent and their health insurance. As a conservative and as a business owner in the construction industry, and needs and different leader and a focus.
First year in the state of Georgia, she wanted to be the Republican nominee for Senate. So she was gearing up for that statewide race, and Trump told her no. Trump said no. And the White House and Trump land shut down Marjorie Taylor Greene's personal ambitions to run for Senate. And she has been on a revenge tour ever since. And so
if you thought the Jeffrey Epstein leaks were done for the day, you would be dead wrong. And Donald Trump would be very upset, which he is, because Jeffrey Epstein's brother just shared information that is blowing up this scandal more than we even could have imagined, with one devastating image and some very unsettling anecdotes. We are going to get into it all. But before we do, if I could quickly...
War and Peace Report, I'm Amy Goodman. Israeli officials say they'll further delay the reopening of the Rafah border crossing between Egypt and the Gaza Strip as Israel continues to severely limit humanitarian aid to more than 2 million Palestinians still suffering from hunger and malnutrition, as well as severe shortages of medicine, clean water, and other basic goods. Meanwhile, Al Jazeera reports Israeli fires killed at least 3 Palestinians so far today, despite the ceasefire deal that went into effect last week. Israeli officials have threatened to end the truce if Hamas doesn't return all the bodies of the dead Israeli hostages. On Wednesday, Hamas said it had turned over 2 more bodies, bringing the total number to 9, but said it would need specialized equipment to search through the rubble to find the bodies of 19 remaining captives, many believe killed by Israeli strikes. The Israeli military is not allowing in that specialized equipment. Meanwhile, thousands of Palestinians who were forced by Israel to flee their neighborhoods are returning to find their homes in rubble. This is displaced Gaza City resident Al-Abed Al-Fioumi.
There's no work, no food, no drinks, no housing, and now winter is coming. By God Almighty, I'm telling you, I swear we don't have blankets. I have nothing, nothing at all. I left and my house was destroyed, and I'm still in the same situation, and now we're suffering. Where are we supposed to live? Where are we supposed to go? What are we supposed to do? There are about 36 of us here. Me, my grandchildren, my daughters-in-law, and my children, and we don't know where to go or where to turn.
The popular Palestinian leader, Marwan Barghouti, is suffering rib fractures after being beaten unconscious in an Israeli prison, the Palestinian Prisoners' Media Office said Wednesday. His son, Ara Barghouti, said the assault took place as his father was being transferred between prisons in Israel. According to Ara Barghouti, the beating allegedly took place after far-right Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir visited Marwan Barghouti in prison in August and showed him a picture of an electric chair, telling him he deserved to be executed. Marwan Barghouti has been in prison for 20 years, serving 5 life sentences. Israel prevented his inclusion on the list of Palestinian prisoners to be freed as part of the ceasefire deal. In Spain, hundreds of thousands of workers and students walked out of schools and workplaces Wednesday in support of the Palestinian people, calling on the Spanish government to sever ties with Israel. Huge crowds marched in Barcelona, Valencia, Bilbao, Sevilla, and Madrid.
My conscience wouldn't allow me to be home. It's taken so long. It's been 2 years for people to mobilize and say, stop the genocide. Spain should cut economic and diplomatic ties with the Israeli government. They speak nice words, but until we break ties, Israel will keep on doing whatever it wants.
The Swedish activist Greta Thunberg has provided details about the abuse she and other participants of the Global Samud flotilla suffered in Israeli detention after they were abducted on the high seas while attempting to bring food and medicine to Gaza. Thunberg describes a visit by Israel's National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir to the Ketziot prison, where the activists were being held. She says he shouted, "You are terrorists, you want to kill Jewish babies," and those who shouted back were taken aside and beaten. Thunberg says she was repeatedly kicked by guards, forced to undress, and was held in an insect-infested cell where she was deprived of food and water. She says she was repeatedly called a whore in Swedish by the Israeli guards, who scrawled the word and other profane graffiti on her suitcase. Thunberg said, quote, "If Israel, with the whole world on her dish, deprived of food and water, and was held in an," says she, and those he says he to the Ketziot prison, where the activists were being held. She says he shouted, "You are terrorists, you want to kill Jewish babies," and those who shouted back were taken aside and beaten. Thunberg says she was repeatedly kicked by guards, forced to undress, and was held in an insect-infested cell where she was deprived of food and water. She says she was repeatedly called a whore in Swedish by the Israeli guards, who scrawled the word and other profane graffiti on her suitcase. Thunberg said, quote, "If Israel, with the whole world watching, can treat a well-known white person with a Swedish passport this way, just imagine what they do to Palestinians behind closed doors," unquote. President Trump says he's authorized this in closed doors. Unquote. President Trump says he's authorized the CIA to conduct covert operations inside Venezuela. This comes as the U.S. says it destroyed 5 boats in the Caribbean Sea, allegedly carrying drugs, reportedly killing 27 people. 4 of those boats allegedly came from Venezuela. Speaking to reporters Wednesday, Trump said, quote, "We are certainly looking at land now because we've got the sea very well under control," unquote. In response, the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, lashed out at the possibility of further U.S. intervention.
No to regime change, which reminds us so much of the endless failed wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and so on. No to CIA-orchestrated coups d'etats, which recall the 30,000 disappeared in the CIA-backed coups against Argentina, Pinochet's coup, and the 5,000 young people who were killed or disappeared.
Dozens of reporters handed in their access badges and walked out of the Pentagon Wednesday afternoon instead of agreeing to the Defense Department's new press policy. The policy states media outlets and reporters cannot obtain any information that the Pentagon does not explicitly authorize. About 40 to 50 journalists from major news outlets left together before the 4 p.m. deadline. Jack Keane, a retired U.S. Army general and analyst for Fox News, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's former employer, said, quote, "They want to spoon-feed in Secretary major explicitly authorize." About 40 to 50 journalists from major news outlets left together before the 4 p.m. deadline. Jack Keane, a retired U.S. Army general and analyst for Fox News, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's former employer, said, quote, "They want to spoon-feed information to the journalist, and that would be their story. That's not journalism," he said. Only the One America News Network agreed to sign on to the Pentagon's new press policy. The Supreme Court on Wednesday appeared ready to strike down a key provision of the Voting Rights Act. During oral arguments, justices expressed skepticism over whether Section 2 of the landmark 1965 law should be allowed to continue. Section 2 outlaws the creation of election districts that dilute minority groups' voting power. This comes as Republican state lawmakers in Texas, Missouri, and Utah are pushing ahead with mid-decade redistricting efforts in 2025 ahead of next year's midterm elections. Other redistricting battles are underway in California, North Carolina, and Ohio as Republicans seek to hold their House and Senate majorities. The federal government shutdown has entered its 16th day. On Wednesday, a federal judge temporarily halted the Trump administration from laying off 4,000 government workers across 8 agencies, siding with unions. In her ruling, Judge Susan Ilston wrote that the White House Budget Office and Office of Personnel Management have, quote, taken advantage of the lapse in government spending and government functioning to assume that all bets are off, that the laws don't apply to them anymore, and they can impose the structures that they like, unquote. The ruling came as the Senate failed to pass a funding bill for the 9th time on Wednesday. In immigration news, the Trump administration is preparing to deport a man arrested by ICE on the same day he was freed from a Pennsylvania prison after serving 43 years behind bars for a crime he did not commit. On October 3rd, 64-year-old Subramaniam Vedam walked free from Huntington State Correctional Institution, where he'd been held for over 4 decades after his conviction for a 1982 murder was vacated. His freedom came 3 years after the Pennsylvania Innocence Project uncovered evidence prosecutors had buried an FBI report that would have exonerated him. He was immediately arrested by ICE agents acting on a decades-old deportation order. He's now being held at an ICE jail in central Pennsylvania and set to be deported to India. Vedam's niece told the Miami Herald, quote, he left India when he was 9 months old. He hasn't been there for over 44 years, and the people he knew when he went as a child have passed away. His whole family, his sister, his nieces, his grandnieces, we're all U.S. citizens, and we all live here, she said. The Trump administration is considering a plan to radically curtail refugee admissions to the United States while giving preference to English speakers, white South Africans, and Europeans who oppose migration. That's according to documents obtained by the New York Times, which reports the proposals would transform a program aimed at helping the most vulnerable people in the world into one that gives preference to mostly white people who say they're being persecuted. Among the beneficiaries would be members of the Alternative for Germany party, known as AfD, whose leaders have revived Nazi slogans, minimized the Holocaust, and promoted anti-immigrant hatred. Members of the Democratic Women's Caucus on Wednesday marched through the Capitol and to Speaker Mike Johnson's office with Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva demanding she be sworn in. Grijalva won a special election in Arizona more than 3 weeks ago. She would be the final vote on a discharge petition to release the Epstein files.
Hey everybody, Peach here, and today we're going to take a look at the Spedient's Gym Monster 2, which is an all-in of
parties.
When Democrats get back into power, the first order of business needs to be launching an investigation into Elon Musk, Doge, and all of the staffers and contractors that worked under them. I will seriously vote for the 2028 Democratic candidate who points out the illegality of Doge that most Americans seem to have forgotten. Most politicians seem to have forgotten that Elon Musk was sifting through and stealing the data of tens of millions of Americans. Elon Musk and his cronies unilaterally shuttered USAID, therefore killing hundreds of thousands of people, which we'll talk about in this video, this new report. And the American people, or at least politicians, were just mind wiped. The Democratic politicians need to be laser focused on accountability, even if it's just for deterrence, deterring future administrations from doing stuff like this, because Elon Musk will hopefully be held accountable. We're going to talk about Elon Musk's insanely illegal actions regarding USAID and Doge, but let's just start here. There is a secret meeting between Elon Musk's cronies and the governor of Nevada that just got leaked. This is some wild stuff. 2 firefighters suffered chemical burns in a Boring Company tunnel, which is Elon Musk's company. It's one of his companies. Then the Nevada governor's office got involved and the penalties disappeared. Now, it's worth pointing out the Nevada governor's office worked closely with Doge and Elon Musk, so after one meeting, all of the penalties were just gone. Let's run through this. On May 28th, hours after Nevada's Workplace Safety Agency served notice of a $400,000 fine to Elon Musk's $5.6 billion tunneling company, The phone rang at the governor's office. Boring Company President Steve Davis was on the line. They were challenging citations from Nevada's workplace safety regulator, blaming it for chemical burns 2 firefighters had suffered in its tunnels. By the next afternoon, a group of high-ranking state officials, including the governor's state infrastructure coordinator who took the call, were convened in a room with Davis, who was himself wrapped up in a stint in Washington, D.C., helping Musk run the Trump admin's Doge. At the beginning of that meeting, the citations and fines, among the agency's largest in a decade, were summarily rescinded. Soon, something else disappeared. The record of the governor's office meeting with Musk's company was removed from a public document with no explanation. This is a type of brazen corruption that people who are incredibly rich, people at the highest levels, are able to execute due to little or no pushback. Elon Musk, when he was in the White House high on ketamine, was essentially like walking on water, meaning he could go anywhere, he could open any door, he could threaten anyone, he could go into meetings with Xi Jinping and Trump, he could threaten this person, he could get access to this building illegally. Once he had access, none of the workers could stop him. Who has more power than Elon Musk? Oh, what, you're gonna fine him $20,000 for illegal entry? He can just pay that. He was legitimately walking on air, whatever the analogy is, and this is the same exact example. When the record is removed from the governor's office and the website, the public websites, who's going to stop Elon Musk and this governor? What, are the cops going to go arrest them? This is why we constantly talk about on this show the justice system or the political system benefiting the richest of the rich.
David Muir, ABC's World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast.
Whit Johnson, we begin tonight with heavy rain battering California and turning deadly, claiming at least 2 lives as millions are now bracing for more flash flooding.
Firefighters rescuing a man stranded on a ledge in Buena Park. While evacuation orders and warnings are lifted, LA City officials are warning more heavy rain arrives.
Now to the escalating war of words within the GOP over the Epstein files. President Trump sparring with one of his most loyal allies, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, calling her a traitor in a social media post. Greene firing back as a critical vote on the Epstein files is set for Tuesday. ABC's senior White House correspondent Selena Wang reports from Washington.
Tonight, just days before the House is set to vote on releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files, President Trump ramping up attacks on one of his closest allies. Trump declaring he's withdrawing his supported endorsement of Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of 4 Republicans who joined Democrats to force that vote. Trump accusing Greene of betraying the entire Republican Party, calling her a ranting lunatic and a traitor. Greene firing back, questioning why the president is fighting so hard to stop the files from being released.
I believe the country deserves transparency in these files, and I don't believe that rich, powerful people should be protected if they have done anything wrong.
The rupture exposing deep divisions within the president's own base. Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie, the lead Republican co-sponsor of the bill, saying he expects a large block of GOP lawmakers to break from Trump, a rarity in today's Washington.
I think we could have a deluge of Republicans. There could be 100 or more.
Trump says he cut ties with Epstein after a decade-long friendship because Epstein and his accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell were luring away women and teenage girls who worked at Mar-a-Lago. He claims they hadn't spoken in 15 years at the time of Epstein's arrest in 2019. But the House Oversight Committee released thousands of pages of documents subpoenaed from Epstein's estate, many of which mention Trump by name, sparking new questions about the relationship with the notorious sex offender. The president deflecting.
This is a Democrat hoax. This is a hoax put out by the Democrat, and a couple of few Republicans have gone along with it.
Congressman Massie urging fellow Republicans to back his bill, warning of political consequences if they don't.
In 2030, he's not going to be the president, and you will have voted to protect pedophiles if you don't vote to release these files, and the president can't protect you then. This vote, the record of this vote, will last longer than Donald Trump's presidency.
And Whit, even if that measure to force the release of the files passes the House, it still needs to clear the Senate, and it's very unlikely President Trump would sign on. But Republican lawmakers, they've got a tough decision to make. President Trump does not want those files released, but many of their constituents are demanding transparency.
Whit.
Selena Wang at the White House tonight. Overseas now to the U.S. military drills near Venezuela. The USS Gerald R. Ford arriving in the Caribbean Sea, marking a major buildup of American firepower in the region to combat alleged drug smuggling. Let's get right to ABC's Alex Prochet. And Alex, these military drills are happening just miles off the Venezuelan coast.
That's right, Wed. U.S. Marines are set to begin joint training exercises in Trinidad and Tobago, just 7 miles off the coast of Venezuela. And this represents a major escalation and show of force in the Caribbean as the Trump administration continues targeting Latin American drug cartels. Just hours ago, the administration launched its 21st airstrike, bringing the total number of alleged drug cartel members killed to 83 since operations began in September. Today, the USS Gerald Ford Carrier Strike Group also entered Caribbean waters, now part of the 15,000 U.S. troops operating in the region, the largest presence there in decades. Colombia President Gustavo Petro has ordered his country to stop sharing intelligence with the U.S. until Trump stops what critics have called illegal executions. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro is calling the Marine trainings in Trinidad and Tobago irresponsible. But Whit, the table is now set for more possible U.S. action. President Trump telling reporters this week that he has sort of made up his mind about next steps in Venezuela. Whit?
All right, Alex Prochet, thank you. Turning to the immigration crackdown in Charlotte, North Carolina, dozens of people have been arrested or detained by federal agents despite protests from the mayor and other local officials. ABC's Faith Abube reports from Charlotte tonight.
Tonight, dozens arrested in Charlotte, North Carolina. The Department of Homeland Security officially announcing Operation Charlotte's Web, saying it's targeting, quote, the worst of the worst criminal illegal aliens. Gregory Bovino, the Customs and Border Patrol commander overseeing the operation, on social media touting 81 arrests on Saturday, claiming many of them had significant criminal and immigration histories.
Hey everyone, in this guide we're introducing our new AI indicator, which we developed in partnership with OpenAI. This is the first trade.
A pretty damning, incriminating, stunning admission by Donald Trump's deputy attorney general after being baited by a social media post by George Conway. George Conway criticized Todd Bland, Trump's deputy attorney general, criminal defense attorney, and the questioning that was being done to Ghislaine Maxwell few months back at that Tallahassee facility when there was that interview between Ghislaine and Trump's DOJ. And George Conway's like, dude, why didn't you ask Ghislaine any follow-up questions? Why weren't you prepared? Like, you see all these emails coming out that shows that Ghislaine was like playing you and she was like lying about everything and she was acting like she didn't know anything about Trump. But all of these emails, it's her and Epstein saying pretty specific things about Donald Trump. And if you just do an analysis of the Epstein emails that dropped, like from these emails, Donald Trump appears in like more than half of them. I mean, just think about that. Trump's name in the Epstein emails is in more than half of them. Wall Street Journal, the threads, that's how they analyze this. Of 2,324 email threads, Trump's name appears in 1,670 of them. So George Conway asks a pretty reasonable question, and he didn't even pose this like, he didn't even go, hey, Todd Blanche, answer this. He just put it into the universe. Here's what George Conway says. An important side note about today's Epstein-Trump revelations. They show that Todd Blanche's questioning of Ghislaine Maxwell, A, completely incompetent, or B, intentionally crafted not to elicit facts incriminating Trump. Either way, he's not fit to serve as Deputy Attorney General of the United States. Now, if I were the Deputy Attorney General and somebody said, regardless of the circumstance, and I'm not even saying this case, just talk about something else, why would I be responding on a social media platform? I'm the Deputy AG. I'm the number 2 person in the Department of Justice. But this Trump regime, they are glued to social media. So Todd Blanche like responds to this. And he goes, George, you've never been confused for a trial. And these kinds of posts explain why. When I interviewed Maxwell, law enforcement didn't have the materials Epstein estate hid for years and only just provided to Congress. Stop talking. It's unbecoming. Now, Todd Blanche, that was a way that he could like own or troll George Conway. But dude, you just admitted One, that Ghislaine Maxwell was basically lying to you during the questioning, which would be a federal crime to lie to the deputy AG and FBI officials. But you also are admitting that you didn't do your diligence before doing that interview. First off, the deputy AG should not be doing that interview. That's never happened before. You're the number 2 at the whole DOJ. You're not doing. Wrote in their memo that they were not releasing the Epstein files in part because they did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. But now, after a push from Donald Trump, here we are. Harry Litman, we've got a lot to break down. Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel and the Talking Feds podcast and the Talking Feds Substack. Harry, let's start off with let's start off with Blanche, then we'll go to Bondi. So in Blanche engaging like this, I think it's an admission. And by the way, the estate was always there, the Epstein estate. They weren't hiding it. You're the DOJ. If you would have asked them for those documents, they turn it over and you have the files. One other point, Harry, before I start rambling. The idea of cherry picking is usually when the party that has the documents selects the documents that they turn over. It ain't cherry picking when the side that doesn't have the documents is putting forward the ones that they can find when you control the cherry trees. They own it. They have the five. Like, what are they talking about? Harry, take it away.
Where to begin? Ben, we had another YouTube discussion involving some total Keystone Cop behavior by Lindsay Halligan. And there's a hypothesis that she just doesn't know what she's doing. Todd Blanche, longtime AUSA, then a private practice partner in a big Cadwalader, a big firm. There is no way, zero way, impossible when you go to interview a witness that you're actually trying to learn something from, you first and foremost gather the damn documents. That is the backbone of any interview.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Bangladesh's former Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, was sentenced to death by a tribunal today for ordering a deadly crackdown on student protesters who successfully toppled her government last year. According to a UN report, 1,400 people were killed, thousands injured after security forces opened fire on demonstrators last year. The verdict came as Hasina has been living in exile in India. Bangladesh has been rocked by 30 bomb explosions and dozens of arson attacks over the past few days in the lead up to the verdict. This comes as Bangladesh is expected to hold parliamentary elections in February next year. In Gaza, Israeli forces have killed at least 3 Palestinians as Israel continues to violate the U.S.-brokered ceasefire. Since the start of the truce, October 10th, at least 266 Palestinians have been killed, 635 wounded by Israeli attacks. Physicians for Human Rights Israel is reporting at least 98 Palestinians have died in Israeli custody since October 2023, and that the real death toll is likely much higher because hundreds of people detained in Gaza are still missing. Meanwhile, UNICEF estimates more than 600,000 Palestinian children have missed out on school during the Israeli assault on Gaza, and only 100,000 have managed to return to classrooms. Humanitarian NGOs say Israel is still restricting the entry of food aid and other critical supplies into the Gaza Strip. This is Zahia al-Shambari, who waited in line to buy bread in Khan Yunis.
After 2 hours of struggle at the supermarket to get a bag of bread, thank God I finally got 1 bag of bread for about 8 people. I'm really happy that I'm returning with a bag of bread, and I hope this suffering doesn't happen again. Not today, not tomorrow, not any other day.
This comes as the UN Security Council is set to vote today on a U.S. proposal to establish an international stabilization force to enforce the Gaza ceasefire. The U.S. drafted resolution also mentions the possibility of a future Palestinian state. But on Sunday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu outright rejected any path for Palestinian statehood.
Our opposition to a Palestinian state in any territory west of the Jordan River, this opposition exists, is valid, and has not changed one bit. I have been rebuffing these attempts for decades, and I am doing it both against pressure from outside and against pressure from within. So I do not need affirmations, tweets, or lectures from anyone.
Meanwhile, new details are emerging about a shadowy organization called Al-Majd Europe that's been taking Palestinians in Gaza to South Africa. The organization reportedly has ties to Israel. Last week, a chartered plane carrying 153 Palestinians landed in Johannesburg. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said, quote, "It does seem likely they were being flushed out of Gaza." President Trump said Sunday he is open to talks with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro as he considers whether to launch a unilateral attack on Venezuela. In brief remarks to reporters, Trump did not offer details about the possible discussions, but said, quote, "Venezuela would like to talk." Trump's remarks came as Secretary of State Marco Rubio designated the organized criminal group Cartel de los Soles as a foreign terrorist organization. U.S. officials have claimed without evidence Maduro and other government officials lead the cartel. Trump has claimed that allows the Pentagon to target Maduro's assets and infrastructure inside Venezuela. Meanwhile, the Pentagon said it had killed another 3 people in the Eastern Pacific accused of smuggling drugs by sea, though officials offered no evidence. This brings the reported toll to 83 people killed across 21 strikes since early September. This comes amidst the largest buildup of U.S. forces in the Caribbean since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, involving nearly a dozen Navy ships and about 15,000 sailors and Marines. In Caracas, President Nicolas Maduro warned the U.S. public against allowing the Trump administration to lead the U.S. into a new forever war in South America.
Queremos otra Gaza ahora en Sudamérica.
Do we want another Gaza now in South America? What does the people of the United States say?
¿Quieren una nueva Afganistán?
Do you want a new Afghanistan? Do you want Vietnam again? Do you want Libya once more, or worse? Do you want a new Gaza in South America?
En Sudamérica. Déjeme decirle que no.
Let me tell you, no, no, and no. Here peace will triumph. International law will triumph.
In Brazil, tens of thousands of protesters marched outside the COP30 climate summit in Belém on Saturday to demand urgent action on the climate, including the rapid phase-out of fossil fuels. The Great People's March was the first major protest of its kind in 4 years, after authorities in Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, and Azerbaijan banned large-scale demonstrations at prior UN climate summits. This is indigenous protester Christiane Puyanawa.
We are here today at the Global Climate March. Women, youths, indigenous people, riverine communities, and quilombolas are united to demand social justice and the demarcation of indigenous lands. Our land and our forests are not commodities. Respect nature and the people who live in the forest. Demarcation now.
We'll have more from Saturday's protests and the action inside the COP30 climate summit here in Belém, Brazil, after headlines. Masked federal immigration officers fanned out across Charlotte, North Carolina. Federal summit Saturday's
of these at the
summits. This is scaled authority, which was the first on Saturday. Marched outside the COP30 climate summit in Belém on Saturday to demand urgent action on the climate, including the rapid phase-out of fossil fuels. The Great People's March was the first major protest of its kind in 4 years, after authorities in Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, and Azerbaijan banned large-scale demonstrations at prior UN climate summits. This is indigenous protester Christiane Puyanawa.
We're here today at the Global Climate March. Women, youths, indigenous people, riverine communities, and Quilombolas are united to demand social justice and the demarcation of indigenous lands. Our land and our forests are not commodities. Respect nature and the people who live in the forest. Demarcation now.
We'll have more from Saturday's protests and the action inside the COP30 climate summit here in Belém, Brazil, after headlines. Masked federal immigration officers fanned out across Charlotte, North Carolina over the weekend, sparking protests as the Trump administration shifted its mass deportation campaign to North Carolina's largest city. Democratic Governor Josh Stein said the agents were carrying out racial profiling and stoking fear.
We've seen masked, heavily armed agents in paramilitary garb driving unmarked cars, targeting American citizens based on their skin color, racially profiling and picking up random people in parking lots and off of our sidewalks.
Among those targeted were landscapers decorating Christmas trees and congregants of an East Charlotte church volunteering to tend a garden. In another incident shared widely on social media, masked federal agents pulled over Willie Wender Aceituna Medina, a Honduras-born U.S. citizen, and forced him from his vehicle.
No, if you break it, you will pay for it. If you break it, you will pay for it. If you break my window. Why did you do this, sir? Why are you doing this?
Aceituna told reporters he warned the agents he was a U.S. citizen, but that they didn't believe him. He suffered cuts to his arm and neck. He later filed a police report over the broken glass. President Trump's called on House Republicans to approve a measure compelling the Justice Department to release the Epstein files. Trump's reversal late Sunday came after he unsuccessfully lobbied Republican Congresswomen Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace to remove their names from a discharge petition seeking the files' release. This follows months of stonewalling by the Trump administration over the files' release, and after Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson adjourned the House early to prevent a vote on the Epstein files. On Friday, Trump demanded the Justice Department investigate a list of powerful Democrats discussed in a trove of newly released emails from Jeffrey Epstein, but omitted his own name. The list includes former President Bill Clinton, former Treasury Secretary and former Harvard President Larry Summers, and Democratic donor Reid Hoffman. Trump wrote on social media, quote, Epstein was a Democrat, and he's the Democrats' problem, not the Republicans' problem, the president said. The Georgia election interference case against President Trump and his allies will now have a new prosecutor after Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis was removed from the case. The executive director of the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia, Spete Skandalakis, is set to take over the case. Georgia State University law professor Anthony Michael Kreis told the Associated Press, quote, I doubt anything will ever move forward with the president, unquote. But the case could proceed against 14 other Trump allies, including former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani and former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. Trump's pardoned Giuliani, Meadows, and dozens of other Republican officials and activists accused of helping him overturn the results of the 2020 election. But the pardons only apply to federal cases, not the Georgia election interference case, which is a state-level prosecution. In the Philippines, hundreds of thousands of demonstrators took to the streets Sunday to demand accountability over a corruption scandal that exposed how top government officials were receiving kickbacks from construction companies responsible for faulty and incomplete flood defense projects. The three-day protest rally comes after typhoons battered the Philippines early this month, leaving at least 259 people dead.
Almost
Almost 100 days has passed since the process began, yet no one...
9 typhoons complete, receiving kickability over. Hundreds of thousands of demonstrators took to the streets Sunday to demand accountability over a corruption scandal that exposed how top government officials were receiving kickbacks from construction companies responsible for faulty and incomplete flood defense projects. The 3-day protest rally comes after typhoons battered the Philippines early this month, leaving at least 259 people dead.
Almost 100 days has passed since the process began, yet no one has been jailed. There already is plenty of proof. A lot of evidence has come out. But our question is, how come no one has been jailed yet?
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, at least 32 people were killed after a bridge at a copper and cobalt mine collapsed due to overcrowding. A government agency reports that gunfire from soldiers at the site sparked panic among the miners who rushed to the bridge, causing it to collapse. The DRC is the world's largest producer of cobalt, which is used to make batteries for electric vehicles. A BBC investigation has uncovered new evidence that implicates 2 U.S. Marines in the killing of Iraqi civilians in Haditha 2 decades ago. The BBC reports statements and testimony given in the aftermath of the Haditha massacre raised doubts about the investigation into what happened November 19, 2005, when U.S. forces slaughtered 24 Iraqis, posing significant questions over how U.S. armed forces are held to account. Just 1 U.S. soldier was convicted of a crime over the massacre. Marine Staff Sergeant Frank Wuterich was found guilty of negligent dereliction of duty in 2012 and served no jail time. And disability rights advocate and writer Alice Wong has died at the age of 51. When Wong was born with muscular dystrophy in 1974, doctors said she wouldn't live to the age of 18. Despite that prognosis, Wong went on to earn an undergraduate degree at Indiana University and a master's degree from the University of California, San Francisco, before founding the Disability Visibility Project, an online community dedicated to creating, sharing, and amplifying disability media and culture. This is Alice Wong speaking with Democracy Now! In 2021.
I think a lot of people in the public do not know what ableism is, and if they hear about it, they actually deny that it exists. You know, ableism is systemic, and it's really bound up with hypercapitalism and white supremacy.
And those are some of the headlines. This is
what happens if my dad starts Tai Chi tomorrow?
How old is your father?
The prosecutions of James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James are likely about to come to a very unceremonious end for Pam Bondi and her Department of Justice. Last week, Bondi was called out by the judge that was overseeing a consolidated motion from both Letitia James and James Comey, seeking to have the cases dismissed because they're arguing that Lindsay Halligan, the U.S. attorney in the Western District of Virginia, was improperly appointed to that position. So the judge, rather than hearing both of these things separately, consolidated them. And one of the DOJ lawyers, a man by the name of Henry Whitaker, went in there and told the judge, like, Judge, look, if there's any issue.
There's 2 things happening. One is that when the shutdown ended, Mike Johnson was forced to sign in at Alita Gravala, and she was the 218th signature on the discharge petition, which is pushing legislation into the House to release the Epstein files. Now, of course, it has to go to the Senate after that, but this is putting, shifting around who gets the pressure. The other is the House Oversight, the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee had subpoenaed Jeffrey Epstein's estate and got hold of 20,000 emails that they released in a massive dump. And wow, what of these emails stuck? We could probably talk about this for an hour and a half, but what struck you in the
The White House is responding to emails released this morning by House Democrats that appear to show convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein believed President Trump knew more about his conduct than the president has acknowledged. 3 emails were made public, handed over by the Epstein estate, that seem to indicate that President Trump knew that Epstein had young girls around him well before Epstein was convicted for child sex offenses. In one from 2019, Epstein tells the author Michael Wolff, of course Trump knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop. It's not exactly what he wanted Ghislaine Maxwell to stop doing. President Trump has consistently denied any wrongdoing in relation to Epstein and has not been charged. And the White House is saying the release of the email exchange.
You think you understand how this business works, but you don't. She owns.
On the morning of August 10, 2019, convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein was discovered dead in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Lower Manhattan. Then U.S. Attorney General Bill Barr ordered an immediate investigation.
You can also see on the back wall one of the prison cameras. It was streaming but not recording due to a hard drive malfunction that had been identified but not fixed, according to.
And we have new information this morning about Donald Trump, a young model coming forward, taking on a company owned by the presidential candidate. She claims she was promised she would make big bucks working for Trump's modeling agency, but that was not the case. ABC's Brian Ross is here with the story. Good morning, Brian.
Well, good morning, Laura. As a candidate, Donald Trump has called for an end to abuse in a U.S. visa program that brings in specialized and seasonal foreign workers, criticizing its use by others, including the ABC parent company, Walt Disney. But it is the very program Trump has repeatedly used in his own business ventures, including one that is less known but quite glamorous.
I believe in you.
In a video for this year's Sports Illustrated swimsuit contest, model Mia King is running a very provocative campaign for votes. Much like the man who owns the modeling agency that represents her, Donald Trump. Beautiful. It's not well known, but his vast business empire includes a modeling agency. Trump Model Management is not considered one of the top 10 agencies, but some of his models have hit it big, including his wife Melania, who, while dating him, posed on Trump's private jet for a British magazine. And as seen on this MTV reality show, Trump has been personally involved in recruiting talent.
You just signed with a model agency today, which is great.
But it hasn't worked out well for everyone. Alexia Palmer was recruited from Jamaica and brought to the U.S. by the Trump agency under a special H-1B visa program for foreign workers. In government documents filed by the Trump agency, it said Palmer would make at least $75,000 a year for 3 years as a full-time employee.
And did that seem like a lot of money to you?
Yes.
But she got nothing close to that from the more than 21 shoots, including this campaign for Iman Cosmetics. According to a lawsuit she's now filed, the Trump agency deducted some 80% of her earnings as fees and expenses, leaving her with a total for 3 years of only $3,880, plus some modest cash advances. And under her visa status, she could not work anywhere else.
I feel like I was a slave or something.
A slave?
A slave, because that's what slavery people do. Just work and work and work and don't get no money.
The Trump agency says it had a hard time finding work for Palmer, and that the $75,000 a year on the form was just an estimate. Trump General Counsel Alan Garten.
There was no employer-employee relationship.
Except you checked the box that said full-time employee.
Well, because that's what the form requires.
But it wasn't true.
This is how it's done in the industry.
But a former senior U.S. immigration official says companies don't have the option of ignoring the wage figures they cite in a U.S. visa form, like the $75,000.
It would be extraordinarily unusual for that to be legal.
The Trump agency has brought more than 100 young models to the U.S. under the H-1B visa program, the very program Trump, as a candidate, has criticized others for using as a cheap labor program.
So 22-year-old Alexia is going to take on Donald Trump.
Yes, and I know I'm going to win because this is very unfair.
Alexia Palmer says there are other Trump models like her, but they're afraid to come forward to take him on, in part because once they leave the Trump agency, their H-1B visas expire, and if they stay in the U.S., they are subject to deportation.
Wow.
Did you learn about the Trump Model Management Agency and whether or not they broke any immigration laws?
This is one of Donald Trump's most prized possessions as a company. He owns 85%.
Learn about the Trump Model Management Agency and whether or not they broke any immigration laws.
This is one of Donald.
Did you learn about the Trump Model Management Agency and whether or not they broke any immigration laws?
This is one of Donald Trump's most prized possessions as a company. He owns 85% of this.
Learn about the Trump Model Management Agency and whether or not they broke any immigration laws.
This is one of Donald Trump's most prized possessions as a company. He owns 85% of this thing. He still earns.
Management Agency and whether or not they broke any immigration laws.
This is one of Donald Trump's most prized possessions as a company. He owns 85% of this thing. He still earns millions of dollars from Trump Model Management, according to election filings. So this is a big deal for him. What we learned was 4 models. In various years from 2004 to 2011, encouraged to skirt immigration laws. 2 told me that they were asked to write down false addresses on immigration forms as well. Things like send your portfolio ahead of time by mail so that the customs officials don't find it. And as we know, working as a tourist in the United States, you simply can't do it. You have to have work authorization.
Right. So, Rachel, that brings us to you. You worked with the Trump Model Management for 3 years. What was your experience in terms of how you got into the country and whether or not you had the right visa?
I definitely didn't have the visa. I got in April 2004, and I only got the visa in September 2004. And between April and August 2004, I spent most of my time in New York and worked and did a lot of jobs to which they deducted taxes. But I didn't have a visa until September. I didn't actually start the visa process until August.
And so you say that it's sort of normal in the industry and that models know not to ask too many questions, but was there something different about the Trump Model Management Agency where they skirted the rules even more so than other places that you worked?
Yes, I mean, I worked with a different agency when I left Trump, and they got me my.
Welcome back. As Donald Trump prepares to outline his immigration plan tonight, his policy on work-related visas is coming under intense scrutiny. A March statement from the campaign on H-1B visas program reads, in part, it says, "I will end forever the use of the H-1B as a cheap labor program and institute an absolute requirement to hire American workers first for every visa and immigration program, no exceptions." Well, that policy stands in stark contrast today with a new report from Mother Jones in which 3 former models claim they worked illegally on tourist visas for Trump Model Management, an agency that is still up and running. Industry experts tell Mother Jones that this kind of violation.
In an exhaustive round of personal interviews designed to help our judges discover what makes each one special.
Your 5-9 reading? Serious, huh?
We made measure again tonight before the game.
Okay.
What makes exhaustive round of personal interviews designed to help our judges discover what makes each one special.
Your 5-9 reading? Serious, huh?
We made measure again tonight before the game.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Amy.
The concentration was intense inside the judging room.
What if they don't like you as you are?
And out.
I'm just so excited.
Each girl was considered not only for her beauty and poise, but also for her personality and that indefinable
something extra that makes a top model.
Okay, you want to pull your hair back 1 second? Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Ingrid. Good luck for tonight.
Thank you.
When it came time to choose the 21 finalists, emotions ran high as each judge expressed his or her opinion. The 58
Donald Trump loves a beauty pageant, and by his own admission, he was no stranger backstage while owning parts of 3 different pageants for nearly 2 decades.
They're standing there with no clue. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible looking women, and so I sort of get away with things like that.
In 2001, Tasha Dixon was Miss Arizona, competing in the Miss USA pageant. She experienced this kind of awkward moment firsthand.
Our first introduction to him was when we were at the dress rehearsal and half naked changing into our bikinis.
Dixon was 18 at the time and says watching Trump storm into a dressing room was shocking.
To have the owner come waltzing in when we're naked or half naked in a very physically vulnerable position.
In an exhaustive round of personal interviews designed to help our judges discover what makes each one special. The world's most beautiful young women competing for more than $700,000 in prizes.
Wow.
Chan
He just came strolling right in. There was no second to put a robe on or any sort of clothing or anything.
In an exhaustive round of personal interviews.
He made Cindy Crawford, Karen Mulder, and Linda Evangelista.
He is known as the man behind the models.
Founder of Elite Model Management.
Mr. John Casablanca.
It was an unexpected profession. I was young, heterosexual, a nobody with no money. I was the outsider.
John Casablancas was a fashion icon who ran the world-famous Elite Model Agency. Donald Trump and Casablancas were friends in the 80s and 90s. Casablancas asked Trump to be a judge for Casablanca's highly successful Look of the Year pageant. There were thousands of applications to be part of the pageant every year. The young women between 14 and
a fashion show, how could he judge it? Fashion show, how could he judge it?
Thank you, and now it's time for the swimsuit competition.
Let's get on with it.
During the 5-day competition, it was very clear that there were opportunities to go out and party with Donald. The contestants were led to believe that if you were nice to certain people, good things will happen to you, and I think that's why girls were going out.
If you're tired of filling out your personal info on multiple comparison websites, only for your car insurance quotes to change like this.
Let's go straight to the U.S., where House Democrats say they have received new emails from the estate of the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein that reference President Trump. This is the social media account for the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee. They say the emails from Epstein raise serious concerns about how much Donald Trump knew about his behavior. And in the last few minutes, we've had a statement from the White House in response. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the Democrats selectively leaked emails to the liberal media to create a fake narrative to smear President Trump. Mr. Trump has consistently denied any wrongdoing in relation to Epstein. Let's go to our correspondent, Nomia Iqbal, who's following this story. Very much a developing story, Nomia. What's the latest?
Well, Anita, with the return of the House, they should be talking about the government shutdown, which we know has been the longest in history, has paralysed the country more or less. But now it's become all about Jeffrey Epstein again. So we've got these documents, which obviously we're still going through. The US House Democrats released new emails, 3 of them, to and from Jeffrey Epstein that reference President Donald Trump. And so just looking at them, one of them is between him and his associate Ghislaine Maxwell. This was in April 2011, and it reads, "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump." And then the name of who the Democrats say was a victim, spent hours at my house with him. Then there are other emails between Epstein and Michael Wolff. He is an author who's written quite a few books about President Trump, and it is in response to a question about Donald Trump. Let me quote you what Wolff has said in that email. "If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the House, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency." Now, the Democrats are saying this proves that President Trump had ties with Jeffrey Epstein and that he hasn't been open and honest about that. The White House, as you read there, that statement from Caroline Leavitt, she has said that this is a fake narrative. You've got Republicans who've now dumped documents as well, saying
He used
start, and I'm ready.
In the wake of questions and allegations about Donald Trump's behavior towards women, ET discovered this footage in our archive, which we provided to CBS News.
Soon. Thursday night. You're going up the escalator? I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. Can you believe it? You're going up the escalator? I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. Can you believe it? Thursday night. You're going up the escalator? I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. Can you believe it? Thursday night. You're going up the escalator? I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. Can you believe it?
Are you familiar, I'm sure you are, with something that's often referred to as the Access Hollywood tape?
Yes, I am.
Okay, let's mark it and play it as, what, 35.
You know, and she used to be very, she's still very beautiful. I moved on her, actually. You know, she was down in Palm Beach. I moved on her, and I failed. I'll admit it. Whoa. I did try and fuck her. She was married.
It's huge news, Sarah.
No, Nancy. Yeah. No, this was marriages. And I moved on her very heavily. In fact, I took her out furniture shopping. She wanted to get some furniture. I said, I'll show you where they have some nice furniture. I took her out furniture. I moved on her like a bitch, but I couldn't get there. And she was married. And all of a sudden, I see her. She's now got the big phony tits and everything. She's totally changed her look.
Jeez, your girl's hot as shit. In the purple.
Whoa!
Yes!
Whoa!
Yes, the Donald is good.
Whoa!
Oh, my man! Wait, you gotta look at me when you get out of your legs. Set this up.
That is very.
Will you give me the thumbs
Look
up?
at you. You are a
You gotta put the thumbs up. You gotta get the thumbs up. Can't be too happy. First? Yeah, let me.
It's very funny.
You gotta give the thumbs up.
All right, you and I will walk that.
He just came strolling right in. There was no second to put a robe on or any sort of clothing or anything. Some girls were topless, other girls were naked.
As Miss Arizona too.
Donald, enigmas.
In years, I guess that's been largely true. Not always, but largely true. Unfortunately or fortunately.
And you consider yourself to be a star?
I think you can say that, yeah.
In a truly revealing moment, he answers one of the lawyer's questions by telling her that she's not hot enough for him.
You wouldn't be a choice of mine either, to be honest with you. I hope you're not insulted. I would not, under any circumstances, have any interest in you.
Grab women by the pussy?
Well, that's what, if you look over the last million.
About the now famous Access Hollywood tape, where he said on a hot mic that he liked to grab women by the pussy.
Grab them by the pussy, you could do anything. That's what you said, correct?
Well, historically, that's true with stars.
It's true with stars.
In New York, Carol's lawyer asked Trump about the allegations, and Trump responded that Carol enjoyed being raped.
She fainted with great emotion. She actually indicated that she loved it, okay? She loved it until commercial break. In fact, I think she said it was sexy, didn't she? It was very sexy to be raped.